today I'm continuing the January 2021 Bargain Bead Box, and these two necklaces are what I am going to show you how to make from the bead box components and beads. And just know that with these videos are designed so that you can use any beads you want and components you have on hand to make these pieces. It is techniques that I'm trying to show you more than just using the bead box. So anyway, we're going to make this multi-strand necklace here and this linked necklace here. And let's get started. Okay, for this next necklace, I'm going to use the large medallion, the connectors, the 10mm dyed quartz, and I'm going to add my own check faceted bead. Like, it's a 6mm, and it's one that I used in my last necklace I made. And you can use anything you want. You could use maybe the bicones that came in the box, or maybe one of your rose quartz, or whatever you would like. The little rondelle crystals, these ones, if you'd like. I just decided that I'm going to use this one, though that one wouldn't look bad with it either. So anyway, that's what I'm going to use. I'm also going to create loops out of these, like you see here. Now, I've done all of them except for two so that I can show you two different methods. I'm using my looper for this. It's a 3.0 looper. It's the large looper, and I'm using some wire. I have 20 gauge wire. It's kind of a pinky rose gold tone, so I'm using it. And you can use your looper, or you can use a round nose plier to do this. I'm also going to be making little loops with these tiny head pins that they sent, and I'm going to show you how to do that really quickly, and then we'll put the piece together. And we'll probably be using the chain too. And did I show you we need the jump rings also? So here we go. We're going to make loops like this. I'm going to show you first how to do it with the looper. I have a 3.0 looper. I'm just going to slide this wire on the end here because I want to make a loop towards the end. I'm going to put it under this peg and above the two little levers that stick up, if you can see that. And then I'm just going to squeeze. And then I bring this wire back so I get a nice bend in the wire. And this is what I've got, a nice loop. Then I can just put my bead on. And then I can place this back into my looper. It has a hole over here. My wire isn't quite long enough to go in that hole, but I'm still going to place it there and underneath the peg and above the two little levers, and then I'm going to squeeze. And I've got a loop. This one didn't close quite all the way, but I can close it with my pliers like this, and I have a nice loop. This, if you're going to do a lot of looping with these boxes, this is really a nice investment to have, and I got mine on Amazon. Then if you want to just use a piece of wire and your bead like this, the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to take about 1/4 inch of this wire, not quite, about right here. So we want it to be a pretty good size loop. And we're going to bend it over like this. And then we're going to grab our round nose pliers. You can just place this over your finger like an upside down L, and then just find the end of the wire and put it on your pliers about halfway down, and then start to turn. And then reposition your hand by turning your wrist over and just continue to turn until you have a loop, just like this. And then you can put it on your bead. And see, my loop isn't quite as perfect as the other ones, but it's not bad. It's okay. Then I'm going to bend this over the bead, cut this side down. Pair of cutters somewhere. I'm going to cut it to about 1/4 inch also. Grab my round nose pliers, go about halfway down, start to turn. Once I get as far as I can turn, then I'm just going to turn my wrist and continue turning. And one side is a little bigger than the other, and that's what's nice about looper, is you get consistent all the time. But that's how you'll make your loops if you don't have the looper. Then we're going to make some of these beads into a head pin with a loop like this. So it'll be a dangle. And I don't know how many I'm going to need at this point because I haven't laid out my design. I just vaguely have something in mind. But I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this. Because these are really little head pins, I'm going to put one in on the bead. Then I'm just going to grab my round nose pliers and I'm going to start right about here on my pliers. Let me get you closer. Just a little ways down, and I'm just going to start turning. And I'm just going to keep turning. And this one, yeah, this one I started too big. Let me do that again. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we'll just put that aside. We get another one out, and we have to start smaller than that. And I knew that, and I don't know why I did that, but I did that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just go to the end here, and I'm not going to go very far down my pliers, and I'm just going to start turning. And I'm just going to reposition my wrist when I need to and just keep rolling until I get a loop like this. And that's what you'll end up with, because these are so thin. If you just try to make a loop with them, they're not going to work out well. Then you can always just kind of turn them back so that they're very weak head pins, and so you have to work with them carefully because you can just distort them really easily. And here's another one I made. So I'm just going to keep rolling them around like that so that they have some strength. And I will tell you how many we'll need once I get my design laid out. So basically this is going to be my layout. I have used 4 of the little beads, and now I don't know if I'm actually going to end up putting this dangle on the top here or not. It's just that I had one extra of my connectors and of my dangles, so I thought maybe I could try doing that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to center this bottom connection and then skip 2 of the little spaces on here in between and put these connections on, and I'm just going to connect it all with jump rings. So I don't have to show you each and every one I'm going to do, but I'm going to start by just connecting this strand here. And so I will start with this here, and then once I get this whole strand connected with jump rings, then I'll put it on here. So it's, you know, easy enough to figure out what I'm going to do here, but I'll show you anyway. So I've connected these 2 with the jump ring, and I'm going to close the jump ring. And then I'm going to grab another jump ring. And of course, I'll get you a little closer for the very beginners. Of course, when you open a jump ring, you place 1 plier on one side of the opening in the jump ring and 1 plier on the other side, and you just twist it open. Place it on the connector, place the looped bead on the jump ring, and close it. Making sure you get your jump ring closed tightly. And I'm just going to continue doing that. I'll connect both of these 2 sides together, and then we'll come back, we'll connect the bottom, and then we'll put the sides on here. Okay, so as you can see, I've made my 2 strands that will go up around the top, and then I'll put some chain on it to make the necklace long enough to actually wear, and or some jump rings, something. But right now I just want to put everything together. So I've connected my beads down here. You can see I have my little dangle and my connectors and my bead, and the first thing I want to do is find the center area of this, and I believe it's going to be right here. So let me get you close. So I'm going to have to connect right where this loop comes around. I'm wondering if I can, nope, it has to be right where that loop is. So there's little openings here and there. I'm going to use those for these, but this loop right here is center, so I'm going to use it to loop around. So I'm just going to open my jump ring, put this right on that loop, and close it. And then I'm going to place these two. At first, I think before I get all that on there, I'm going to see what this looks like on the top here. I can get it centered. I wonder if that is center. It looks like center, but maybe it isn't. We're going to find out. I'm going to go up on the top here, and I think right here is going to be center. And I'm going to put a jump ring on it. Once I get it all together, I can look at it, and if it's not quite centered, if it looks all crooked or weird, hangs funny, then I can always change it. So I've got this jump ring on here. Now I am going to put this little dangle on here. See, the side's the same, yeah. Okay, and close it. These are kind of wimpy jump rings too, so be careful not to distort them. See if that actually is going to work. That might not even work. I might have to find a smaller jump ring to do that, or move it somewhere else. That's because, see, that doesn't work well. So we're not going to do that right there. Let me see if I might need to use 2 jump rings, and smaller ones too. So I'm going to play with this for a minute. So I just found a smaller jump ring. Now I have a variety of sizes of these rose gold jump rings because Shirley from Budget Bead Box, not Bargain, it's a different site, sent me a whole bunch of them. So if you need some rose colored bindings, you might want to check her out so that you can make your box. She has really reasonable packages of head pins and all that stuff. So now I'm just going to try to, this isn't perfectly centered. I had to put it on a loop down here instead of up here. I put a jump ring on one of the loops. It isn't perfectly centered, but it's close enough. And then I'm just going to go ahead and center these two on these 2 loops here. So let me see if I can get you close enough so you can see. So I'm just going to put this one on this loop and this one on this loop. So I'm just basically skipping a loop. I'm going to connect those, and then I'm going to open a jump ring and connect the top ones. And then we'll call it good. Well, we have to put a chain on the back, and we have to finish it, but it's getting close here. So I'm just going to bring this around this loop and put this on. I got a jump ring on my jump ring. Jeez Louise. Today, things are going to argue with me like every other day, I guess. Okay, got that one on. And then, it's too big. I'll put another one. Skip a loop and go over here. Put this one on. Yeah. Close you. I don't even know if I'm in camera. I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I'm getting tired. Alright. There. Now, That's what that looks like. And I am just going to grab some jump rings and put this one on. I'm going to use a little heavier jump ring to connect those. Just because I can, because I've got some. So I'm just going to do this, put this one on here. Oopsie. And then I'm going to grab another one that's silver. I don't want that. How do I get a silver one in there? That's kind of weird. Okay. I've gone into the talking to myself mode. Sorry, guys. I think I'm getting delirious. Alright. And we're going to put this one on here. Slide this on. Very simple necklace, just loops and jump rings. Very simple. But it turns out pretty, I think. I think it's looking pretty nice, actually. Let me back off so you can see a little bit better what it looks like. You can see my messy bead pad, but that's okay. I'll clean it up. I always do. Alright, so let me get this in camera, and that's what this looks like so far. Yeah, that was helpful. There. That's kind of cute. And now, to make the end of it, I'll just open up some chain and pop it on there, or I can continue putting some jump rings. I might just put some jump rings on the back and make the necklace the rest of the way. I'm going to measure how long this is so I know how long I want this to be. I want this to be a longer necklace since it's such a big medallion. I'd like to hang right in the middle of the chest. So I'm going to measure, figure out how much chain I want, and you can do the same. Just figure out where you want it to hang, and then we can just attach some chain to the end and find a clasp and call it good. Okay, and here is my finished necklace. You can't see it all because my camera doesn't zoom out that much. But this is how I ended it. I just put a chain on the end with a lobster claw clasp and a big jump ring. And this is what it looks like. So it turned out pretty. It's just a simple necklace. I'm not a big fan of great big medallion type stuff, so it didn't really motivate me that much. But it's pretty filigree, and I'm sure someone will like it. So anyway, that's what that one looks like. And then I made this one earlier. And so I think I'll try a couple more things and call it good for this month. Okay, so I have an idea to make a multi-strand necklace with some suede cording here. And I'm going to use tan and fuchsia. And I'm going to modify these components that we have, these chandelier components. I did this one already, and I'll show you how to take off the loops here because I don't want them on there for this particular idea. Now, either I'm going to ruin my components or this is going to turn out good. We're going to find out. And then I'm going to use the rose quartz, the little rondelles, both strands of the rose quartz, and some cord ends like these. And I'm also going to use some 6mm faceted glass check beads that I'm going to use. They're going to kind of tie in my colors, my light pinks and my fuchsia, my cord. So I'm going to use those. Those are from my personal beads. But you can use whatever you want to do it. So it doesn't really matter if you add your own beads or not. This is a techniques video, as I always tell you. So I'm going to have some crimp beads also and some Beadle on 7. This is the bronze color because I just don't have a copper color or a rose gold color, but this will blend in okay. And I have some little crimp tube covers if I so choose to use them. I don't know if I will or not. So the first thing I'm going to do is let me clear this all out of the way, and I'll come back and show you how to modify these. So basically just take your chain nose pliers, get this a little readjusted here, and grab a hold of the loop firmly and just bend it and wiggle it a little, and it'll just come right off just like that. The one on the inside is a little harder to reach, so you need your chain nose pliers, and you need to just reach in first and kind of bend it out so you can get a hold of it. You don't want to distort your components, so just mess with it a little bit until you can get it and break it off just like that. And now you can see it's a little rough here, so I have this little file. You can use an emery board, whatever you'd like, and just, you don't have to file it down to where it's perfect looking or anything, because our leather should cover this part, but you just want it to where it's not sharp. So just file it down a little bit so it's not sharp, and then just set these aside. Okay, so we need to make 5 strands to connect our 2 pieces together. Each strand needs to be a little bit longer than the last. So the first one I'm going to make about 7.5 inches long, and the one after that I'll make 8 inches long, and then I'll make 8.5 inches long, and so on and so forth. So that my pieces or my strands will cascade and not jumble up or lay on top of each other, or if you make it to where they're all the same, it doesn't really lay properly. It's just kind of straight across. So you need each one to be a little longer than the last. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of, since my first one's going to be 7.5 inches, I'll cut a piece about 9 inches long or 10 inches long of my beadalon. 7, this one that I showed you earlier, and I'll make my first strand. I'm going to make it off of the components, because sometimes when you connect directly to the components with your bead wire, it'll twist and turn and do weird things and you can't really control it. Has a lot to do with the way you crimp it, but sometimes you can do your best to crimp it and it's still going to turn. It's just works out that way. So we're going to make our loops off of the components and then connect them with jump rings. And I'm going to see if I can find a small jump ring like a 3mm to connect it with, so that it doesn't take up a lot of room and make so you don't see it as much, basically. So my first one, I'm going to get a size 2 crimp bead, and I have these little copper, these are beadalon, they just happen to be in a bag instead of a tube, but these are beadalon size 2 crimp beads, crimp tubes. I'm going to pick one up, and I am just going to double it over. Now I have actually cut about 14 inches. You don't need that much, but you do need enough to where you can work with your beading wire without struggling. So now I can just bend this over, put it back into my crimp tube, straighten out my wires, and pull my crimp tube up until I have a small loop at the end here. I don't want these to be big because I don't want it to take up a lot of room on my component. So I'm just going to make a small loop like this, and then I'm going to grab my crimping tool. I'm going to place this in the second divot of my crimping tool, just like this, and I'm going to squeeze. The second divot is the one closest to the handle, and then we're going to place it in the first divot of my crimping tool, like this, and I'm going to squeeze again. Now I have a good crimp. I'm going to move up and crimp it one more time. Now I have a nice little crimp with a little loop, and I can cut this part off, my tail, and I can just start stringing my first strand. So my first strand, I'm going to use these little rondelles, not that one, these little crystal rondelles, and a few of my metal rondelles that came in the box, until I have about 7.5 inches. And then I will go ahead and crimp off the other end, and I'll show you what I come up with. Okay, so I've made my strand just a little under 7.5 inches, real close to 7.5 inches long, and I have a rondelle, metal rondelle, 5 of the crystal rondelles and a metal rondelle, and I repeated the little pattern there. And now I'm just going to pick up another of my crimp tubes. I'm going to bring it around. If you would like, you can put something inside the loop so that, like, you could put, I have this little file, I could put this here and wrap and pull until I get my loop, or you can just do it with your fingers until you get it. You want a little bit of movement between these beads so that they're not real tight and stiff, but you don't want a lot of space, no big gaps between them. And then just pull your loop until it's about the same size as the first loop you made, and then crimp it. Again, second divot first, first divot second. So I'm going to put this on here, squeeze, turn it to the side, into the first divot, and you can see the little tubes I made are touching my tool. I have it centered properly, and then I'm just going to squeeze again. And sometimes it turns just like it just did, and you can just squeeze it again until you get a nice proper crimp, just like that. Okay, now I have my first strand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to string my next strand. I'll start it exactly the same way. I'll make my loop. I'll make my next strand, lay it next to this one, and make sure my next strand is 1/2 inch longer than this one, and then make my loop and crimp it off. And I will make 5 strands in total, and then each one a little longer than the previous one, and then I'll come back and show you what I have. So I have made 5 strands, each one a little longer than the next, and this one I actually don't think I might not have made it quite long enough, so I may have to remake that one. But I'm going to go ahead and put them onto the components and see if everything turns out fine. When I laid out my design, it looked longer than once I strung it, so perhaps I may need to redo this particular strand. But I have these 3mm jump rings, and as you can see, I've connected the first one here, and then I'll connect the second one here, and I'll just continue connecting them all the way around. So I'm just going to open my jump ring from side to side and bring this here, put this on, oops, I get organized with my hands here, put this on and close it. And that's my first strand, like that. And I will just continue putting my strands on. I have them laid out in order. And then once I get finished, we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I have gone ahead and put all my strands on. I did have to restring this one. It just wasn't long enough. You have to have at least a 1/2 inch of length, longer length than your previous one. Otherwise, you're just not going to have it lay out nice and neat. And it's nice that each one is right at a 1/2 inch short, so that they all lay about the same space away from the previous one. So I had to go ahead and restring this one, which is fine. I did that, and then I put it all together. And now I'm going to figure out exactly how I want to put the suede on the top here. Okay, so I have cut 4 pieces of my suede, 2 of each color, 16 inches long. Now we're going to double this. So if you lay this part on your beadboard, you can line this up with the 3rd slot. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me back off. Don't laugh at my beadboard. It's disgusting. I use it for everything. It's got marks on it. It's got glue on it. So, you know. It's like 10 years old. So I'm going to lay this on here. Now, you can see from, if I lay this one in the one closest to the inside of the beadboard here, that will be my accurate measurement because it's a multi-strand necklace and this is the one that's going to be closest to your throat. So I have a little over 6 inches here. So if I want to make my necklace about 18 inches or 20 inches, then I'm going to figure out exactly how many inches I have until I get to that length, and I'm going to double it. That's how I did mine. Because when you cut it, each one of these we're going to fold in half. So you need to double the amount of inches that you need to make the length you want. And then cut 4 of them, 2 of each color. And then I'm going to just put these together. And I'm going to just tie a knot or slip this through this side. So I've got my 2 pieces together like this, and I'm sliding it through my loop from the back forward. And now I'm going to bring these pieces in, and once I bring them all in, I'll straighten them all up, make them look how I want them to, or you can just have them messy however you want them to look. And then I'm just going to pull this around. Now, I think actually I'm going to do that the other way around. I think I want this part in front. Either way you tie this, you get a little bit different look at the front of the knot. So I think I'm going to slide it in from the front like this. And then I'm going to pick up the back and slide it through the loop that I created on the back here. And then when I pull this forward, I get this nice spread so that where I have cut off my hooks is going to be completely covered. And I can have it lay out so it looks pretty like this. Straighten it out. Squish it together a little so that my pink kind of lays on top of my tan instead of next to it. Let's see if I like that better. Yeah, I think I do. And that's going to make it a little narrower so it'll go around the neck a little nicer. Or you can straighten it straight out like that. And we'll see how it ends up when we put our ends on. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side here, and then I'm going to measure it again and cut the amount of length I want. Cut them even on the end, and then I'll show you how to put on your crimp ends. Okay, so I put them both on now. Make sure you put one color on top of the other color, and as you put it through, that's the one that's on top is the one that's going to be towards the inside. So do each one the same way when you wrap it, so that as it comes out, you get your 2 colors laid out the same way as the first one. So you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's what that looks like. And then I'm going to measure again on my beadboard, and I'm going to cut the amount of suede that I think I want, and then I will put my ends on. So let me measure this again. I will cut these all flush, and then I'll come back and show you how to put the ends on. Okay, so I've measured mine. So 16 inches was quite a bit, so I cut quite a bit off because I want mine to be about a 20-inch necklace. So from the top of this to the first strand here. And I've put them together, my pieces of leather, and cut them the same length. And then I laid them out and put a piece of plumber's tape on. So just lay them out straight. One of these is twisted, this piece of leather. I should have looked at it closer, but that's okay. I'm going to try to put it together the best I can, leaving quite a bit hanging out of the end so that I can put my crimp on, or my cord end on, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to lay it out like this, straighten them out the best I can, and just wrap a little bit around the back so it just holds my cords together here like this. And then I have these ends here, and this is about 13 millimeters long, and it fits pretty well onto this leather. But first I'm going to cut this and then place them inside here and squeeze it with my fingers until I get it kind of stabilized, which is not real easy because these are kind of hard. So let me get my flat nose pliers, center this the best I can, and then grab a hold of it and squeeze. And that's how you put those ends on. And I'm going to do the same thing on this end, and then I'll put a jump ring and some chain on here. And it'll be a little bit longer than 20 inches. I'll measure it again because I'm going to put a little bit of chain and make it so it will have an extender on the back. Okay, so I have gone ahead and put both ends on, and now I'm going to put a jump ring, and I've decided just to put a toggle clasp on. I may need 2 smaller jump rings on this side and then 1 on this side for this one, but I'm going to see how one works first, see if I can clasp it. So this is about a 6-7 millimeter jump ring, something like that. And I'm just going to slide this on here and slide this on here and see how this works out. Like I said, I'm designing, so I don't know. And we'll see how this lays on the neck too, because yeah, you just don't know until you put it on. There's that. And then I'll put this one on and try to clasp it and see if it works. See, when you have something really wide, sometimes one jump ring doesn't work well, but I think that works pretty good, like that. So I'm going to go try it on and see what happens. And here's what it looks like, and it does lay really nice on the neck. It turned out really nice. So this is just another way that you can use the beads in the box and incorporate different mediums and different techniques with which to make your creations. So I really think this one turned out pretty, a lot prettier than I thought it would, and I will wear this one because it's really nice. So anyway, that's that project. And here are the pieces that we've made in this part 2 tutorial. I hope it gives you a few ideas on what you can do with your bargain bead box, or even just with your beads at home and the components that you have on your own. Just try a few of these techniques, modify them to suit what you have, and next video I will show you how to make a couple of bracelets. So there will be one more in this bargain bead box series, and then we'll be done. Bye-bye.